Hello, everybody. I am Justin Lomnus, the lunatic libertarian, and I'm here with my guest, Dan, Taxation and Theft Behrman. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, doing pretty good. How about you?
Working hard, working hard.
Right?
It's about all you can do, man.
Yeah, awesome.
So why don't you let the people know who you are, man?
Sure.
Um,
Man, that's always a tough question because I do so much stuff, man. So uh, I'm just a liberty lover. I'm just a person who likes being free. I don't like being told what to do. But not necessarily for selfish reasons. I'm kind of I'm kind of in this to make the world a better place, but that's kind of that's me. I just like to be free. So that turned me into a liberty activist. The government came along a few times and tried to rob me, and they tell me the government's there to protect me, but then they're the only ones trying to take all my stuff. So kind of yeah, yeah. Who are you protecting me from again? Anyway, so.
right.
Yeah, it just kind of wasn't too happy about that, and became an activist in all kinds of different ways. And it's like it started out over just taxes, which is how I stuck with the name Taxation is Theft. But uh, it's in so many other aspects, and the more I dig, the more I find other things. I mean, I started becoming active in cannabis legalization. Seeing way too many people go to prison for that. I started becoming an activist in medicine, seeing how much big corporations are ripping people off in cooperation with the government,
Correct.
coincidentally. And just seeing all this stuff, and yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a problem solver. I see a problem, I try to solve it, and yeah, that's that. I don't know. I could get into the whole history of growing up in California, but that I think it's kind of boring. Uh, yeah. I mean, they tried to brainwash me. They tried hard. I think they succeeded in a couple ways, but I was able to undo that. So,
And you have ran under the Libertarian Party for the governorship of Texas, correct?
yep, I did for a little bit. I butted some heads with some people, and that I came to the realization I could do a lot more good fighting for freedom by discontinuing that campaign. But before that, I did run for president until the bitter end as a libertarian candidate, and that was awesome. And in both of those races, I met a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people. I learned a lot of new things as far as problems that needed to be solved. So I'm not sitting in the White House right now. I'm not sitting in the governor's mansion in Texas, but I have reached a lot of people, and I have learned a lot of things that have helped to take the activism that I do to help a lot more people. So that's really the important part to me.
It sounds like you're doing a wonderful job. We met each other on Clubhouse, and that was when I was first starting to really ramp up my involvement with the Liberty Movement. And it wasn't on a very good note that we started on, but we've worked our way through that to have this conversation now. So, I mean, people don't always have to agree when we first start having a dialogue, but if you can get through the strife and the struggle of the butting of the heads, you can actually come to a common ground with most people. You would agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I even find that like a lot of the fights between people who are in the same group just come from you know they fundamentally believe the same things, but they have different language to explain different things. So it's like
Yep.
somebody says my favorite color is red, and then the other person says no, green is a much better color, but like like through perception they might be looking at the same color and saying like no, that's the best color, and it's like, oh, you call that red, I call that green. And it's like, well, we totally agree on something, but we've been using these wrong words. And I see this a lot in a lot of just a lot of the ways that people disagree with each other. But it's bigger than that too, because ultimately you have bigger problems that, especially you could say like the left right paradigm,
Right.
Democrats, Republicans, like all these things. Like a lot of that is it's a little bit more complex than just words, but it's the same kind of thing. It's ultimately, people want to be free and they want to be left alone and they want to be able to live happy lives. And the solutions that both sides push to that are usually trying to get that for themselves. But they're being told that it's the other side that's getting in their way. And really, I can say usually the left is the one who's accused of not wanting to just be left alone and live a happy life. They're the ones who always want to take everything from the right. But the reality is they want to take things from the right because they're told you're living in poverty because the right took everything from you, and the only way to get out of poverty is to take everything back.
Right.
And so, like, if you go back to, like, okay, let's forget about taking things and who's got what. Let's go back to, would you be happy if you could just be left alone and you could have everything that you needed, like food and shelter and like all these other things, and didn't have to, And it's like, and it's like, yeah, they would be happy with that. And so fundamentally, everybody wants the same thing. And it's like, but they're arguing over like these things, and a lot of it's just crap that politicians gave them to say like, oh, you have to fight for this, and you have to hate those people, and yeah, so it really sucks, but it's like we're being manipulated with language.
I would totally agree, and I think it's changing on a daily basis. Now,
Yeah,
when you look at the language that was used when Henry Anslinger was pushing for cannabis prohibition back in the early 30s, I believe, do you think that we were having an issue with language back then because it was these people are going to do you wrong because they're under the influence of this product that comes from another country supposedly, and now we have to make it prohibited so that we can protect other people. Do you think that that policy making has just grown exponentially since those times?
yeah. I mean, I think so. There's definitely a little bit of language contributing to that. Like we know they were using the word marijuana because they were trying to create like this whole like anti-Mexican fear mongering thing towards the prohibition. But I think the reasons that they wanted to ban it were different. But also, I mean, you look at the 70s when Nixon really kicked off the whole drug war. It's because like all the hippies were like, they were anti-war, and he's like, no, we got to go to war, and they're
Yep.
like, no, we got to not go to war. And he's like, well, I can't arrest these people just for free speech, so I guess I'll arrest them for all that weed they're smoking.
Correct.
But it does come back to that, that same thing. Like just because they're all smoking weed doesn't mean you can just go out and arrest them. You need to convince the rest of the country that like, oh, these are bad people. They're smoking this drug and it's making them stupid. So I guess in a way that is kind of linguistic, but it's manipulation. But I guess it's linguistic in the way that if somebody says the word cannabis, one person hears like, oh yeah, this is something that I enjoy to consume and it makes me feel happy. But to another person, it's, oh, that's bad. That turns people into rapists and murderers and makes them commit crimes. And so in that way, it's like, yeah, you can use one word and you're dividing the population based on how they perceive that word. So I think, yeah, that does have a lot to do with it.
I think it's become public policy now to make sure that that happens, especially when you have all these secular groups that are thinking in the hierarchy standard that now maybe in the practice of our history that they weren't on the highest level of the hierarchy group, but now most people, no matter what race, color, creed you are, can participate in society fully. Now it's subject to sometimes their skill sets or their knowledge or maybe sometimes their environment is not that great for them. But we have examples of people that grew up in terrible environments that actually prospered even more because of the strife. So, would you think that if everybody was given a free pass in public policy to where there was no more prohibition for anything, whether it be guns or drugs or anything like that, I mean, you still have to keep in the prohibition against murder, rape, anything that's violent towards another human being, obviously. But if people were given that opportunity, what do you think would be the outcome? And I know it's a kind of a loaded question, but if people were given the freedom to participate in things that actually make them happy, instead of having to worry about, the law coming in, and when, they're policy officers, that's why they're called police officers. They enforce public policy, not just what keeping the peace between individuals, which that's what they were originally intended for. So, what do you think would be like an outcome if actually people were going to experience that in this lifetime?
Yeah, and I want to thank you for pointing that out because, I mean, there is a huge difference, and like people don't recognize that's where like police comes from. It's policy enforcement versus like what you said, the peacekeepers. Like sheriffs used to be called peacekeepers, or you have there's a movement now for constitutional sheriffs who prefer that word peacekeeper more. But yeah, that's exactly it. Because when you're a peacekeeper, you're looking to prevent people from doing those things that you said, like murdering and stealing from people, these things that violate other people. Whereas when you're consuming something on your own, you're not violating anybody. So it is really just about your happiness. And there's, everybody's happiness is different. What makes you happy, how you want to live your life, what you want to do with your life, what defines success. This is all different for everybody. And I think that's something that's really important to understand, because we have this mentality of what success is. And, it usually manifests in the form of parents telling their kids, you have to go to school and get good grades so that you can get a good job, so you can do, and like, that's the success. And we know that like that creates a lot of resistance. And, with kids, like, no, I just want to be a kid. I want to do this. I want to enjoy my life. Right. And so what does it really mean to be successful? And I've seen a lot of people that, they work their ass off their whole life. They have a lot of money and they're like, but I'm not happy. And then they get to a breaking point where they're like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to retire early, or I'm going to shift my mindset into something that's more about happiness. And
Right.
their life just totally turns around. And it's like, and they regret wasting so much of their life just working in this machine. And what's interesting about that is, like, this is what the school system really pushes, right? And this is really toxic, like, for so many different reasons, because it forces you to say, hey, go borrow a couple $100,000 so you can go to some expensive college so that you can get a high salary. And then it turns out, oh wait, I have the degree, but I'm not getting the high salary. There aren't jobs for that. Now I have this debt, and it's like there's so many toxic things within the system, and it's like yeah, you can spend your entire life chasing what other people tell you is happiness, but it's like, no, you have to really understand that for yourself. And I get, like, there's the other end too, like, oh well, people can just do whatever they want. They're gonna go smoke drugs, and it's gonna escalate. It's gonna go to worse drugs. They're gonna do heroin because heroin makes you happy, and it's like that's not necessarily true, but sometimes it is a good thing. Like, I can't think of his name right now. Russell Brand. He did a lot of drugs, like bad drugs, and he went through rehab, and he's an amazing person now. And a lot of the good things that he says to spread, happiness and knowledge throughout the world is a result of the rehabilitation and everything that he went through. It's his journey, right? And so, does he regret doing all these drugs at some point? I'm sure. But does he regret having that experience so that he could be who he is now? I know a lot of people, I don't know him specifically, but I know a lot of people who have been in that position, and they're like, I wouldn't trade that in, because this is how I got where I am. Now, yeah, there's tragedies. There's people who they take the wrong drugs, they overdose, and they die, and these things are terrible. But we also have to understand that, if something is shunned by society and it's put on a black market, you get into situations where people, they want to try things, they want to do things, they're hanging out with bad crowds who are breaking the law just by being there because it's a black market. People are, somebody overdoses and everyone's afraid to take them to a hospital. People are mixing in toxic chemicals with their drugs. just like, oh, it'll get you higher, and it's like, oops, somebody died. I don't care. I got paid. Like all these problems happened, and the reality is, if we didn't treat it like such a bad thing, then people could get help and people could experiment with drugs, and they'd be able to do it more safely. And a lot of these problems would go away. And it doesn't mean the world's going to be perfect. The world's never going to be perfect, right? I mean, even if you were to eliminate guns, drugs, and all these other things completely throughout the world, you're still going to have accidents. Someone's going to build a skyscraper and forget to strap in his harness, and he's going to fall to his death.
Correct.
Things are going to happen. People are going to get in relationships, and they're going to have bad relationships. They're going to fight with each other, and maybe they're going to attack each other violently, or maybe they're just going to drive angry, which is going to cause them to crash into something. Like, bad things happen. The world is not a perfect place, and we can try to reduce these. But one thing that we really can't do is we can't say that person is doing something to themselves, and so therefore I'm going to do something to them even worse and lock them in a cage and give them a criminal record and make sure that they can never get a job.
Right.
And push them towards a life of poverty and it's like that. Like, how are you helping them? You're not. If anything, you're protecting. And I hear this all the time. Like, I don't want that stuff around my kids.
Well,
that's
just ridiculous. Right, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Because myself, I'm a felon, and I'm considered a quote unquote violent felon by threatening to blow up a police department while intoxicated on legal drugs, which was alcohol at the time. And I'm very thankful that I caught my case before all this craziness that happened with more mass shootings and all this other stuff, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you right now, given the way that people have been treated in the criminal justice system, which is just criminal. There is no justice. So I completely agree with you on that, that we have public policy that had good intentions when it was written, but then politicians have to make sure that they have job security. So they constantly keep writing in all this other crap, which doesn't mean anything. My personal opinion is we can go straight back to the Constitution of the United States, across the board, each state, and we could deregulate a whole bunch of stuff and then rebuild. Now, when we talk about illicit drugs or illegal drugs, a lot of them are sold in pharmaceutical markets legally. You can get a prescription for methamphetamine. You can get a prescription for heroin. Yes, they're lower schedule than marijuana. If I remember correctly, I think marijuana is still Schedule 1, or cannabis is still Schedule 1.
No medical use, they say.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely ridiculous. Everybody that's been using cannabis for thousands and thousands of years absolutely understands that it has medicinal purposes, because you have an endocannabinoid system. So anything to the contrary is absolute pseudoscience, in my opinion. But yet again, we can educate ourselves on how these policies were implemented from Henry Anslinger all the way forward, because he was the first drug czar. And then you can see how public policy has just been a nightmare. Now, my personal perspective is, if we can end the drug war, open free trade, end the violence in other countries, stop supplying money to combat production and stuff like that. Because if you make it another commodity, obviously the market is going to say this is how this is going to work. It has nothing other to do but entice people's brains to say, "Oh, this is naughty. I'm getting dopamine and adrenaline rushes right now just thinking about, ooh, I can do something naughty." And that's basically the premise behind the "Don't Just Say No" program. No, most kids didn't know anything about drugs until the Just Say No program came into it, and then holy shit, I can take this product and go on the street and not sit in this fucking classroom, and I can go make thousands of dollars in a week. Like, come on now. We understand what the actual psychology is behind these programs. We understand, we lived it. We went through the crack era. We went through the heroin era. I mean, all the way from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, to now. I mean, it's just a cycle of heroin, crack, cocaine, all the way back to heroin again now. Opioids, or I mean, however you want to classify it, it's still poppy, produced into
Yeah.
another product. So, and I think Dr. Christopher Hart said that even though he was using heroin recreationally, you know, it depends on the individual. And if you want, and I think he's a chemist. If you want to know about something, you have to induce it into your own body to actually get a full understanding. And I think he was saying that on the Joe Rogan podcast. But I mean, a lot of what people think about illicit drugs, it is all a propaganda scheme. There is no science behind it. It's all to get your mind to think, oh, this is negative. But in some people's minds, it goes to, ooh, negative. I'm doing something wrong. Stop what I'm doing. In other people's minds, it's, ooh, something's wrong. Yeah, maybe I want to cross that line a little bit because I like the danger factor. And I mean, that's human nature. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people like skydiving. They like skiing. I mean, how many people have died skiing? These are all dangerous things, but they're exciting.
Correct.
They enjoy doing this, and even more, technically accurate is when you do these things, your body is producing drugs itself, like you know, uh, uh, um, adrenaline and dopamine and like all these things. These are you're creating chemicals within your body, and like some people say, oh, but it's like either they'll say it's bullshit or now that I guess science is becoming more popular and everyone knows it's true. It's like, yeah, but that's natural, and it's like, yeah, but you can still like you can overdose, you can do crazy stuff on these things. I mean, like you can you can get heart attacks. Like these things are all dangerous, and like they can make you make bad decisions. So you end up crashing into a tree or so. Like so many things can go wrong, and it's like, but we have to understand that if this is what makes you happy, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, like there's really no problem with it. It's this is your journey, this is your life. You're creating these moments. You're experimenting with your mind, which is, I mean, that's another thing. Like so many people, and this one I think is kind of difficult for a lot of people to understand. Is just actually taking to speak in drug terms, taking the trip, like going through your mind on a journey through your mind that and I know people who have done everything from mushrooms to LSD to like some of these other things. I don't even know the names for ayahuasca and like all these other things. Like they're going through a journey to like help them find themselves and understand the world and all these other things and come to terms with their own mind. And like to so many people who just don't get that, it's like, no, that's bullshit. They're just like, but it's like, no, there's actual like thoughts going on in somebody's head when this happens, and the end result is like actually something amazing because people transform themselves. Some people go from like angry people or from somebody with PTSD to somebody who can say like, hey, I understand people now. I understand when I see somebody who's walking down the street and they're mad, maybe I should go say something nice to them because they're just having a bad day, and I'm going to make the world a better place just by doing that. And like these are sometimes the results of taking these drugs that are like the most dangerous, like
Well, I mean, people have that journey of taking different illicit substances, let's say, or different substances that you get from the street because it's not provided through a legal avenue, let's say. So you go on that kind of a journey. I'll tell you a journey that I went through the VA. I went through the VA's drug journey, and you want to talk about prescription medications that are handed out like nothing. I mean, I've taken them all from gabapentin to you want to talk about lithium or Depakote or Effexor XR or Prozac or any kind of anti what are they SS? What the hell are they?
SS something in inhibitors.
Yeah, neural inhibitors. Yeah, something like that. SSRIs or some shit like that. But but they'll hand them out all day. But if you want to go consume cannabis, which you already know gives you the effect that you like, I mean, just think of the people that go out and consume whatever drugs they're consuming on a street level. And then you take anybody that's on a prescription medication. How many people that are on the prescriptions will tell you, I just take it to function, but I'm fucking miserable? And how many people on the other end are like, I'm cool. I just take this to make sure that I can drive on or and relax and make sure that life is not too serious to me, but I can make it through the day, no problem. I can be functional as a human being without any detriment. But the people that are on the prescription medications are the ones saying, "Yeah, my life still sucks, but I can get up and go to work every day."
Yeah, I want to say this too because I mean, you said like they like people say they take it to like not take things so serious, and it's like that's actually a really good thing. Like people don't realize like I tell people all the time, don't take life so seriously because it's like I mean like you do like you become obsessed with like something isn't working right and it's like that creates like for frustration and anxiety and depression and like all these other like really bad negative effects because you're taking things too seriously instead of just recognizing like hey this is my life I'm just going to enjoy it I'm going to die someday can't take any of this stuff with me like let me just try to enjoy my life and like not take things so seriously and like I get it, like because some people are like very competitive, right? You have your career, you have to outdo the other guy in the corporate office setting so that you can perform something better, so you can get higher up the ladder. And I get it, like people are competitive, but even then, like even if you're in a competitive thing, like I don't think you can take that approach. I mean, like even like Olympic swimmers or whatever, what's his name, Phelps, like, who happened to be a huge cannabis user. Like, and I don't know what his position is, but like I would say, like even if that's your work hard, right? Work hard and try to be the best at what you do, but don't take things so seriously that like if you don't make it, you're gonna break down in tears, like oh my god, I didn't get the world record, or I didn't. It's like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You can't take these things that serious, and like I think that's what happens if like that really makes the difference. Like if you make a loss, you don't hit your target exactly where you want it to. Like you break down into tears and into depression and like all these other things, and it's like that's no good. Like if you did it, great. If you didn't, just try harder next time. But like it's not the end of the world. Don't take it so serious.
Right. And it depends on where people derive their satisfaction from as they're trying to achieve stuff. It just depends on what satisfies one person doesn't satisfy for everybody else. You know, when I go to work every day, I look at that I keep trucks on the road, make people safe, and make sure that products get to where they need to go. Make sure commodities are shipped back and forth via the road transportation. So, I mean, I take satisfaction in that the vehicles that I work on, families can drive right next to them and know that they're mechanically sound and there's not going to be an issue. So, I mean, that's where I derive my satisfaction from doing that because I know there's a lot of other people out there that are not going to take the attention to detail to actually accomplish that. So, try and provide the best
Yeah.
service possible to the customer without, bankrupting them. But yet again, the personal responsibility that goes into taking care of a vehicle is another thing that people neglect because do you think that a lot of people, because this is what I think people push responsibilities onto others because they feel that that's how the society is built. I can push, educating my children onto the school. I can put the quality of my groceries on the grocery store instead of, if I were to produce my own products, if I were to educate my own children, what is going to be the end product that if I were to do it on my own? Do you think people do that and then they get mad on the results of what they get because they what do they say they the words escaping me what the hell? Can't even think right now.
I'm like don't figure out what you're thinking of because I'm trying to like come up with what I'm going to say next and like I don't know where to start but because I get what you're saying and there's like a lot of aspects to this but like like okay so um yeah there's so many different ways I could go on this there's so you see somebody driving down the street right and they're driving like a beat up piece of shit car right like now some people will look at that and be like how can that guy be happy driving that piece of crap around right and it's like okay yeah you might not be but it's like who cares is he unhappy like does he look like he's having a problem there like and if he is maybe you want to help him out with something but to just look at it like why do people do that in their heads like they see something and they just kind of like get judgmental, and it's like maybe he doesn't care. I mean, like I, I've never bought a new car in my entire life, and like the last car I bought, it was I paid $3,500. It was a 10-year-old like old SUV, just like it ran. It had all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. Like I was like cool like that, right? But it wasn't like there's nothing like you look at it and it kind of looks like I mean it wasn't totally falling apart, but like it doesn't look fancy or anything. And I'm like I'm cool with that, right? And I know like some people look at that and be like, oh yeah, well I got this new Tesla, and it's like, well yeah, that's cool, but like who cares, right? And so like, but I know like some people like to to your point about like they try to like put those values on other people. And I know like I've done the same thing. So like now that I bought a house and like I've had to go through construction and have people work on my house and like they finish things and I'm like, oh man, this guy did a really shitty job.
Because
Right?
who sets the standard is the question. Who sets the standard? Because nobody's going to live up to my standard if I haven't, and nobody's going to live up to your standard. So,
right. But so this is like, but now that like these thoughts are getting into my head, like when people work on my house, now I'm like, I'm kind of like, okay, let me supervise and make sure they do it right. But now I even know what a good job looks like and what a bad job looks like. So now I can walk down the street and see all my neighbors' houses and be like, oh, they fucked that up, right? But it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, if they did that to my house, I would be mad. Well, yeah, I'd probably be mad because I paid for it. But like, especially if somebody charged a lot for it. But at the same time, it's like it's somebody else's house, and it's like if I didn't have that experience of going through and having somebody, do that same repair on my house, and they left a hole in the wall, like I never would have even noticed, right? Like that's the thing. Like it's like all these thoughts that get into my head about, oh, is it perfect? And it's like yeah, you can paint a wall and be like, wait, is this the same color paint? I don't know. And it's like, wait, is it because it's not dry yet? And you can start like noticing I see a line, like there's two different colors. Like and it's like it's like at the end of the day, it's all nonsense. And like you invite people over to your house, and they don't even know. They don't see these things.
They don't give a shit about that, You have some people that are that feel that they are higher up in the hierarchy, that feel that they can come in and critique, oh, why did you choose this color? And it's like, who gives a shit what color is? The wall is the only reason that we had paint invented was to protect the wall. It wasn't to, it was to protect the wall from damage. It wasn't to do anything else. It wasn't to make this room look bigger. It wasn't meant for any of that. It was like, yeah, this seals in all the cracks. This is pretty good. It was lead based at the time, so it was ultra thick. This seals in. Instead of putting insulation in the wall at the time, we're going to put paint up, and that's going to keep the wind out. That type of shit. But who sets the standard? Who sets the standard on education? Who sets the standard on skill sets? Who sets the standard on who's supposed to give a shit about what everybody's supposed to give a shit about? And this is where we have this major conflict going on, especially in the United States, because I look at it on the political spectrum that Republicans are losing power, Democrats are losing power. The narrative's collapsing because now everybody can interact with each other if they so choose, just like this right here. And if people want to grasp onto the information that's being spouted here, then they can grasp onto it and say it to the next person, the next person, the next person. And pretty soon the whole narrative changes. It's just like COVID has changed now to where, well, it's your own risk assessment, coming out of Dr. Fauci. But holy crap, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, if you said any of that on the internet, you are a piece of shit. There is nothing good about your life. You are nothing, and it's just like, I don't know. I think that the people that make decisions understand because of their experiences that not everything is crimsons, clovers, rainbows, and unicorns. Life is hard. We put too much value on material things when it can be taken away from you in an instant. This money, it's money, it's paper. Just because you think it has value and I think it has value, that's why we can exchange this paper for paper and, everything's hunky-dory, even though it's worth absolutely nothing. It's worth whatever the paper is made out of and the ink that it's made out of, so it's people, I think, are changing their mindsets as far as where they derive their securities from. I think they're giving up on this government structure that they're going to tell me everything that I need to do because I can probably throw a rock and hit 900 people that circumvent the government in one form or way or other, on a daily basis, but they'll still vote for Democrats just because, oh, well, I'm a do-gooder, so I'm going to do right for everybody because then the government tells everybody what they're going to do. It's like, get the hell out of here. Or I'm going to vote Republican and I'm going to have this nice moral standard and I'm going to be, higher up than everybody else. It's like, get the fuck out of here. You're a human being. I'm a human being. Let's start the conversation there and let's move forward. Because if you cannot see me as a human being, then there's no conversation to be had. And I think that's the problem also with all the secularization. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I mean, like you said, it's I see money as belief, right? Like you believe it's worth something, and people say like, well, it's not just you believe it's worth something. Like you can take it somewhere and you can buy things with it. It's like, yeah, because the person you're buying from also believes it's worth something, and they believe it's worth something because you can take that and buy it from somebody else. But it's like, okay, what about inflation? You can believe inflation doesn't exist, which is interesting because for the past, I don't know, 6 months, year or something, whatever, when they're talking about like these stimuluses and they're going to print all this money and do all these things, there were all these articles coming out saying inflation is not going to happen. It's not a thing. Like, yeah, this is why we can print all this money. There's not going to be inflation. And now
that's like, the propaganda campaign that followed. That was a propaganda campaign that followed.
Exactly.
Tell you, oh, this is just fine.
But this is the thing, and I see like I think it was Thomas Massey was criticizing like one of these people who's like, oh my god, I can't believe this inflation, which was like the same newspaper that was saying there's not going to be any inflation, and it's like, and he's like, well, I hope they learned it. And I'm like, no, that's the point. They didn't learn anything because it's not like they made a mistake. They misled people. That was the whole point of it. The whole point wasn't like, things are going to be okay, we're going to get through this. It was, we're going to lie to you so that we can do something that's going to benefit us. I mean, the people who printed that money, they have to deal with inflation. They have to deal with higher prices and everything right now too. But that's okay because they inflated the money themselves. They were able to spend it while it was still worth something. And so now that everything else is inflated, they're like, we don't care. We're still the richest people in the world.
Right.
Right. So but that propaganda campaign changed the belief in people to like think this money's still great. We can do all the stimulus stuff and the money's still great. And now they're starting to see the high prices, and it's like, yeah, like, and the scary thing is a lot of people are going to learn from this. A lot of people aren't going to learn from this. But then also when the time comes for this to happen again, it's going to be another generation. They're going to, they always target the kids with like a lot of these campaigns. They go through like colleges and everything else. They get the young, influential, like new voters coming out. We're going to vote for this guy because, I mean, look at how many young people were supporting Joe Biden because they thought he was going to cancel the student debt and all this other stuff. Those people weren't around when they voted for Obama and got screwed with that one. I was one of those. I was young. I was how old was I? 20 something, early 20s. And Obama came around and I was sick of the wars. And I was like, yeah, we got to end these wars. And Obama says he's going to end the wars. I'm going to vote for Obama. They fooled me. They tricked me. But I learned from that. I didn't vote for him the second time. But it's like, and then I got to the point where I'm like, this is it. Like my vote doesn't even count. I'm not even going to bother voting anymore. I'm pretty much at that point. But now it's like they're going after the younger kids again.
Yes.
And they're coming out and they're like, oh yeah, all those other politicians were terrible people, but this new guy, he's amazing. It's this new guy who's not even a new guy. Like Biden's been around for 50 years passing racist laws and doing all this other stuff, and it's like, but they don't know. They didn't live through all that. They didn't see it. So
correct.
It's a new guy with a new plan and a new strategy, and he's going to fix everything and make it go away. And so it's like,
they want you to idolize an individual to solve all the problems, which is really, really messed up, especially in the United States, that you don't worship kings in the United States. And that's basically what they're saying they're doing. And executive orders are being spewed out like what Donald Trump did. He spewed out executive orders, which can be, as soon as the next president takes office, they can be wiped out. And it's kind of funny because I found out that OSHA was created under an executive order. A bunch of organizations were created under executive orders. And you can just wipe them out. if you were to actually reach that precedent of being the president of the United States. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think that people aren't informed enough because who teaches them? The Department of Education. Who controls the Department of Education? The government. Who do they steal the money from? The people. And then who do they not educate? The people. So they can keep taking their money and keep telling them what they can and cannot do. And everybody's just like, okay, I guess, big government's gonna, well, that's all I can do, there's nothing else. So
I
excuse
mean,
me.
like that's the thing too, right? Like you can, I mean, that's the oldest swindle in the book, right? Is like you say like, oh no no, like I'm gonna teach you how to play this card game, right? And I talk real fast, I give you all these rules, I make things sound crazy, so you don't understand it. Next thing you know, it's like, oh no, I win. No, yeah, I win. No, see, yeah, no, yeah, you didn't get this other rule. No, I win again. Like that's what they're doing. They're like making the rules extremely complex. Go look up the law of anything. There's like a
Oh
million
yeah.
laws. Like if you try to like learn all these laws that you're supposed to obey to be a good citizen, like you can't even read through it. One, because it's a million pages. Two, because it's written in some language that resembles English, but it's not. Like you can't. And so now they're like, and what's happened is like they've given up and they're just like, you know what? I don't know how to play this game. Just tell me what I need to do. Oh, I need to send you a check. Here you go. I don't get the game. Just here's the money. Just do whatever you got to do. And that's like, it sucks, but like, and I know a lot of people are out there, like they start to like pay attention to one little aspect of this, but it's like, even when you try to do that, like the machine is so big and so complex, it's like you can't do it in every aspect. And so and this is where you get a lot of people fighting over like, no, this is good. This is how we fix this one thing. And it's like, yeah, but that's going to affect something else over here. And, and it's because it is a massive, complex machine, but it's like, hey, you know what? We can start throwing parts of that machine away
Correct.
that aren't doing anyone any good. Then it'll be simpler to understand. But we have to stop listening to these politicians because the politicians want the machine to get bigger and more complex so that we can feel stupid looking at it and just be like, you guys do whatever you got to do. Like that's what they want. They want us to just like hand over that power and just be like, you guys just, they're not smart. They're not geniuses. They don't know what they're doing.
No.
But they just keep us bewildered and we hand over control. That's what they want.
And it's quite ridiculous. I love there's two movie quotes. The one is from The Kingdom, where the FBI, the head of the FBI, sits down with Department of or the Secretary of State or whatever, and he says, "Once you find out that life is finite, you'll never be scared to lose it." That is a total quote that people can live by. Once you find out that life is finite, you're not afraid to lose it anymore. And then you will always strive to obtain what is meaningful to you versus what's meaningful to other people. And that's probably the hugest thing that people can learn nowadays is that it's about you, but if you can help other people in the long run by being you, that is awesome. And usually people will always be there in your corner to make sure that your security will always be there as well. And I mean, when we first had our conversations on Clubhouse, we had a riff, and then I apologized. I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I was too drunk." And then I was like, "Well, what's that website you have?" And you were talking about Nugs of Knowledge. Went right on there. Was like, boom, boom, boom. Placed an order. Here you go, man. This is, it's an olive branch. I'm gonna support you, supporting myself. You know what I mean? And I received the product, and it was great. And I didn't reorder it because now I can go right down the road and go hit up my local store, and it's my local shop. I live in a town of 3,000, so I do it that way. But anything to help other people out, no matter what. It's because it doesn't matter. Because in the end, as long as people talk about karma and stuff like that, if you do good for other people, usually good comes upon you. And people have taken that to a religious aspect and all kinds of other stuff. That's just human nature. If you help other people, people will help you. And that's just the way that it usually goes.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, these are some like really important lessons that we don't learn in school. They don't teach us this, and it would be great if we learned this from our parents. But the reality is, like our parents, like it's not that they're bad parents or they did a bad job, but they don't have all this wisdom either. I mean, a lot of our parents are doing their best, and they just don't know all the things to teach. But like, to that point, like some of the most important lessons that I've ever learned is, if you want to be successful, help other people. Like, stop trying to help yourself, help other people, because it does, like, I don't want to say it's karma or anything like, mystical, universal, whatever, but it's
correct.
like, just the fact that like you help people and you stop to admire other people's success, that starts a conversation, and you learn from them, and they teach you, and they become. I mean, people who are successful, they love to share, like, oh, this is how I did this. Oh, it's so great. It's so amazing. Check this out. It's brilliant. And you learn from that, and then you go do it yourself, and like, you're probably going to be so happy that you succeeded in doing the same thing that you're going to share that knowledge with somebody else. And it's like, this is like, it's that whole, it's just that whole thought of like stop focusing on what you can take from other people and start focusing on what you can do for other people. And it will absolutely come back. Like that's just how it works. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, that's probably like one of the most important lessons anyone can ever learn. But they're not going to teach us that in school. They're going to teach us, they teach us to be selfish. They teach us like, oh, you have to be at the top of the class so that you can get the, $500,000 loan and dig yourself into a hole. It's nuts. It's total bullshit. So you can work in the factory, so you can spend your entire life, earning a pension so that you can sit around and do nothing for the last 20 years of your life.
There are no pensions around any fucking more. There are no pensions. There's hardly any unions. All that stuff that's 70s, 80s, and maybe in even the early 2000s. I think that's when pensions really went away. And if you had a pension, you were the first one to get chopped. You were, you're done.
Yeah. And now it's Social Security, but it's like, it's not going to be around much longer either.
Right. Well, I promote people having as many skill sets as they can have, and tangible skill sets. Use knowledge that you can use on an everyday life, from tying your shoes to walking down the stairs. Those are skill sets. Believe me, there are people that lose them and have to relearn them. So just try and be good people. Try and be good people to other people. Don't back down from people. Invite some conflict, but don't take it so personal that you can't open your ears to the wisdom of other people. And I love Dan because he opened my ears to a lot of things. I'm hoping that I open his ears to a lot of things. And we're having a mutual conversation right here because I've claimed to be a libertarian. I think Dan claims to be a libertarian. I'm the lunatic libertarian because I am fucking batshit crazy. I will tell you that I'm batshit crazy, but that's just me. That's a journey that I've been on. Dan, do you want to tell everybody where they can find? I have your website, nugofknowledge.com. Is there any place else that people can find information about you?
Yeah, let me just send everybody to danforfreedom.com. I guess that's more about me. That's my that's where you can find my Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Actually, not Facebook because they don't like me. They kick me out from all my shenanigans. But yeah, that links to the Twitter, and that's probably going to be more about all the stuff that I'm working on. Nug of Knowledge is one of my projects. That's where I sell Delta 8 cannabis products. We've got gummies and vaporizers and like all kinds of cool stuff there. We call it high science weed because it's like, and it's legal in most places because it's not actual THC, but it will make you feel pretty good. But I'm not allowed to say that, so that's not really what I meant. And then there's taxationstuff.info where I help people learn to not pay income tax because that's a whole scam. I'm involved honestly in a bunch of projects. I can't list them all, but Dan for Freedom is probably where that's going to manifest, like the list of all the projects, because I know a lot of these projects are exciting and people want to get involved with them. Right there. Because some of these things you can invest, you can make some money back. Other things, it's you can volunteer and help change the world. There's so many things that I'm working on for so many different reasons, and we're growing. We need help. We need a lot more people involved, but it's that's kind of the center where everything's going to be. So check that one out.
Excellent, excellent. Yep. And I'm going to be at the Libertarian Wisconsin Convention on the 29th next week on Friday. I'm going to be interviewing all our Libertarian representatives there, everybody in the party. I'm trying to talk everybody's head off and spread the message as much as possible. Thank you very much, Dan Behrman. Dan, Taxation is Theft. Hit him up, danforfreedom.com. Hit him up on Enough for Knowledge. Taxationistheft.com or
.info.
.info. Taxationistheft.info. Hit that one up because I think the government is screwing everybody because, income tax, this is what I need to survive. And they're taking it before I even get it. And then every time I buy something, they're taking it. Every time I sell something, they're taking it. Even if I die, they're going to take that anything that I'm going to pass on and say, oh, no, you got to be taxed on that as well. So taxation is absolutely theft. I'm the lunatic libertarian Justin Lomness. That is Dan. Taxation is Theft Behrman. And this is the Lunatic Libertarian Podcast. And we are out. Thank you very much, everybody.